give him a warm welcome.
So thanks for that, Royd. So I'm not going to do an introduction of myself because that's just pointless and you're not come here about me blowing my own trumpet. How many people have actually heard of the Agile Fluency Model? A few hands. So hopefully I don't get it massively wrong in my interpretation. I recently did the facilitation course for it, which is quite fun. Quite fun, it's online, it's on about an hour. You pay £500 to be able to facilitate it, and then they don't give you anything to be able to facilitate it with. So I'm a little bit miffed at the moment, but we'll see. But I like the idea of it and people that are involved in it. So what is it? It's about how Agile teams typically progress as they develop new capabilities and what they're doing. And generally, a team will start out as a collection of skilled individuals. And that's where we all start from when we do a lot of these things. So the history of this is it was a concept created by Diana Larson and James Shaw. And they did an article and actually ended up on Martin Fowler's blog. So everyone's probably heard of Martin Fowler. Works at ThoughtWorks, extremely intelligent guy around this stuff. And they come up with this model of what it is and how they see teams when they're doing their consultancy go through this process, and they work quite well together. You may have heard the names or may not have heard the names. You certainly probably have seen their books, because I normally know people by their book covers. Diana had done Agile Retrospectives, Making Great Teams Great, and Making Good Teams Great, sorry. And Liftoff, there's another version of it. It was quite an old one around how you kick off projects. And Agile Development, that sat on my bookshelf for an extremely long time, and I read the first 2 chapters and then more shiny things come along. But yeah, they know their stuff. They go out and they consult around these things. So they first published that article in 2012, and it grew from there, as I say, their experiences with different pieces that they've done and how they were working with these skilled practitioners throughout the world. So some of the fundamentals of it is that with every incremental investment, there's some value, because it's really important that as we invest in our Agile teams, that we do get some value out. We want to strive along the pathway, which gives us more benefits as we're putting this stuff together. And what's really important is it's any and all methods and frameworks. So it's not about Scrum, it's not about Kanban, it's not about DAD, it's not about any of those tooling that's out there. But it's really about, having the one-size Agile doesn't really work. It's just working what works for you. I'm a big fan of that, of taking bits and pieces. I think we've had Alan Kelly here talking about Zamban, I think, probably. I keep missing him. Every time I want to go and see him speak, I'm somewhere else. And that's really fundamentally around how you take the best bits of everything and go, actually, that works for us. You get Scrum Butt and Scrum Ban and all these different sort of things out there. So for me, let's just call it Agile and work through with it. And this sort of does help, I feel, give it. So why is it a fluency model and not a maturity model? Where a maturity model is more about where you are now, and the fluency one is a pathway to where you're going to take your journey. So being fluent in things, especially around languages and things like that, you automatically, what you do automatically without thinking. If you're fluent in a language, you can probably switch between them quite well. There's also a return from investment in the learning that you're going to put in. It becomes routine, smooth, and skillful, and it's a practical application of a theory. So actually getting Agile fluency and being fluent in Agile, if you like, this just comes with it, and not having to think, well, actually, do we have to do a retrospective today, or do we have to do this? It just happens. You just know about it. And great example of that is maybe everyone's body clocks. This would be a great thing to ever happen. Everyone's body clocks is right, so that everyone stands up for the stand-up at the same time, rather than this higgly-piggly, different people coming along. So what they talk around is where you start, and then they talk around, originally when this came out, it was stars. And to me, it seemed very much like a McDonald's worker with 1 star, 2 star, 3 star, and 4 star, but they've now made it more into zones. So zone 1 is around focusing on value. So some organisations will feel that they're winning when they've got that, and they realise the collaboration and transparency that you get from that and the cost savings. Zone 2 is around delivering value, so having minimal defects and high quality allows them to ship on a cadence that's really important to them as well, and hit their market. And the optimized value is where they anticipate the market more, and they understand and they're able to change really quickly as a company. And the last one's about optimizing for systems. And very rarely do people get to that level, so there's not so much around that. But it's about the whole company moving. So that's really where your startup is, where there is none of this legacy stuff. And that's probably what we'll find going on. But one of the things is you need to understand what all four are and then pick where you want to get to, where you feel comfortable to get to, because without that, you can't build on it. So the way they look at it from a zoning point of view, and I'm hoping I've not offended anyone by cutting off their town at any point on this one, is for us to be able to get to Halifax, we have to go through, from Leeds, we have to go through Bramley. Unfortunately, we have to go through New Pudsey as well, and then Bradford, and then out to Halifax. But we have to come through this to get there. And then maybe 2 stop-offs, as I say, in Zone 2. It's not a great example of that. But, you know, with a lot of these things, you can't jump straight from nothing to 4. We have to take you on that journey. You'll hear, a few people will probably snigger around it, that Spotify model. I hate with a passion. People go, oh yeah, that model works for Spotify. I'll take it and I'll use it where I want to use it, and I'll change all the names of everyone and do it, and do a whole load of cargo culting, which is what ends up happening there. It doesn't work because you haven't taken people on the journey. And I found this with working with certain teams is a consultant will come in and go, right, we're going to have a Kanban board and we're going to have these 20 lanes for our value stream, and about 3 people know what it means and they're all in management, and everyone doing the work doesn't quite understand why it's there. So I did this in the last year, coming to a team, they'd already gone back to starting from scratch. But within like 6 weeks, talking them through the stuff, they ended up roughly back to 20 lanes, but they then knew it because they've been taken on that journey. They understood what each of those meant. And then we scaled it back down to 6 again, and then we started to realize that things had been missed off, but that was the value stream that was required by the business. So it's really important for me that for you to get to somewhere, you need to go on the journey, and you can't just jump through the hoops. So, as I said, you start with a group of skilled individuals with the tools and resources to develop the product. That's the bare minimum you have to start with. If you're not there, then you haven't got much to work with. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our bus or train along the route. So Zone 1 is about management practices. And out of that, we get things like Kanban boards, sprints, backlogs, iterations, retrospectives. So the real basic agile stuff is what Zone 1 is all about. And as we get those, we get more productive with stuff. We start to deliver stuff better. I should have put my 18 certificate up on this, but I'll try to be more polite. If you just leave yourself in Zone 1, and not do Zone 2 stuff, for me at least, is you'll deliver stuff really fast, deliver a lot of crap faster, and you just keep adding to the pile of crap because you've not done Zone 2. And for me, Zone 2 is really important. We'll come on to that and you'll see why. So the thing to get from focus on value is shifting the team culture and getting the team's fluent levels at a consistency that they're always focusing on creating the value for the business. So the management knows what the team is, when the team is building and the thing wrong, the business certainly understand that, or isn't making any progress, and has the ability to positively change that. So what's really important there then as well is the team work collaboratively to reduce the handoffs, reduce the miscommunication, and start to delivering the right thing. So that's really what happens at that level. So Zone 1, we get greater visibility into teams' work, ability to redirect as we need to change. So, using the whole Agile manifesto around responding to change rather than following a plan, that's really important to it. The investment to the team is making sure that we got their development and work process design is correct. And the core metric for that is the team regularly reports progress at a business values perspective. So from that, and I'm real passionate around the whole, if we're not delivering value, what's the point of doing stuff? So every single story should have a piece of business value in it. I absolutely hate the whole, as a X, when I do X, I prefer, in order for X, when I'm this, I can get that. So that we can see the value straight up and everything's value driven. and I've said this before around, if you use that format, you can get a lot of developer technical debt stuff done. So in order to deliver faster, as a developer, I want to do this. Then the business read that. To develop faster, I'll have that, rather than as a developer, they won't read it. So value, if you turn everything to be value driven, people tend to pick it up. So when Diana and James were doing this, they found of the teams they were talking to, 45% were at this level. And on average, it takes 2 to 6 months to get into the zone 1 environment. So then we come to zone 2, which is then management and technical practices. And this is where I'm saying that you can't really do agile stuff without the technical practices. You can't do it without your test-driven development, refactoring, continuous delivery, and your evolutionary design. And that is, for me, is the core that all teams should have to allow them to move forward. And one of the great things that this group started from XP, which is this. XP was all about most of this, about the refactoring and pairing and all this great stuff. And for me, the post-agile thing is going back to XP. Forget Scrum, forget Kanban. Just go back to extreme programming. It's certainly the way to do it. But by bringing in the technical practices, it works. And I certainly don't think you can deliver high-quality items without some of these practices in place. So, so this is where the two come together. And for me, most teams will probably stop at zone 2 because that's as far as they can go. Because I can imagine in most people's companies is trying to change how your whole department works or how your whole company works is going to be like, no, we haven't got appetite for that. Especially people in the Leeds area where we've got William Hill, Sky and NHS and things like that. I can imagine, unless it's a startup, you've got no hope of doing this. So I personally think zone 2 is as far as you go, and that generally is where I cover it off to. So that is around shifting the team skills. So we really upskill people to get that stuff. So teams get fluent around predictable delivery of the value, and they have their first fast concept delivery, and they start to look at cycle times more, and that starts to reveal some of their early flaws. And as I mentioned before, high technical quality, reduced bugs, reduced rework, would be great, and that's where we can really get some power out of this. So again, this is where the benefit we get is low defects and high productivity. We get lower. So part of the investment piece is that you get a lower productivity during the upskilling piece. But the core metric we get from that is the team starts to ship on market cadence. And they found that 35% of teams were doing this, and it was taking 3 months to 2 years for teams to get this. So if you're lucky enough to have a team that's already highly skilled in these things, then hopefully this piece becomes second nature. If you hire a whole load of devs that can do TDD and can do DevOps and can do all the really cool stuff, then you may get there straight away. But this is certainly the holy grail. So the next one, as I say, is around zone 3, around organising the structure. So they understand what the market wants. So the team understands what the market wants. That's the important thing around this, and what your business needs and how to meet those needs. So the team starts to really understand this. But zone 3 starts to talk around the team reports its results using concrete business metrics, such as return on investment, net profit per employee, and customer satisfaction. So those things are really where you're built into the business. And you can imagine someone like Spotify are probably there because they started there, but most companies probably won't get there. How often would you hear that a development team would actually understand what return on investment is or actually be involved in getting those numbers out? But also having mutual trust between the team and the organisation that then leads to the rapid, effective negotiation, and the team's broader expertise comes out. So this tends, as I say, to happen around a startup or predominantly an IT environment, an IT company where we'd probably live here and move forward with stuff. So here, the bigger benefit is that we get high value deliveries and better product decisions. The social capital expended on incorporating business expertise into the team. So that's really dropping the people in the business into the team. That's really important. That can break down so many barriers, but how often do you even get to talk to your proper product owner? We're all talking to the proxies most of the time. But if you can actually drop that business owner into the team, you're going to just be able to increase your feedback loop and get there. And as I say, you get your team concrete business and metrics around that stuff. So they were finding that 5% of teams were getting that, and it would take 1 to 5 years. That's a long program to get. It's a bigger organisational change than most people are prepared to take. So yeah. And then the final one is optimised for systems. So that's organisational changes for the culture. So the team describes the work in the context of the business, and allowing products to be balanced against each other as well. So they're able to say, okay, actually, these are the 2 products we're working on. Let's make sure they work in tandem, and the team get to choose that rather than actually the business. And then the team cross-pollinates across other parts of the business and innovations, and all these other teams come together. But you can imagine most companies aren't even going to allow that to happen. So it's a sort of alignment with organisational goals, strategic synergic efforts, significant effort in establishing that organisational culture and new practices. So probably quite difficult when people are stuck in their old ways. The marketing companies still think that print's the only way to go rather than online. Could be an example of that, which is quite hard to get them to change their mindset or how they work with that. And then, yeah, how does the team report as their impact on the overall organisation? So there's very few that do it. It's unknown how long it takes it. It's an extension to Zone 3 from that point of view. So to achieve the fluency, it's about the skillful practice under pressure. That's really important. So it's about practicing that mastery. So it's sort of a lead on from when I did a talk year before last, I think, on software craftsmanship. And it's sort of that, but for Agile. But I think the two do hang close together. Anyone can follow a set of procedures in a classroom. You can sit there with a book and do it. But when you're in the real world and that pressure's on you and your boss says, I really need this doing, and the first thing you do is not do the test-driven development on it, and you don't do your 3 Amigo piece, and you don't follow doing a retrospective, and you just need to knock it out the door, that's when you're not doing fluency. You need to be pushing back, going, no, that's how we do things, and we do it for a reason, and the reason is that we are actually more performant. Our systems are better when we do that, so we don't get distracted from it. So that's really important. So when you start to do the deliberate and constant practice, if you're learning a language, learning an instrument of anything, there are always new and better ways to do it or work with it, especially in software development. So the way that the pathway to fluency works is by having that deliberate practice and trying these different things out and making that happen. So just practicing with that skill, doing katas and konans, I think they are now, that get you to practice these things. And I don't think we do that enough certainly not from a technical point of view, but not even from an agile point of view. There's this whole holy grail of, okay, yeah, you send someone on to a Scrum Master course or a Kanban course, and then they come back and they're meant to teach everyone it, but we don't really practice it enough to go, well, actually, what will happen in this scenario? And actually, sometimes people, or most people, probably aren't in an environment where it's safe to fail. And Agile is about doing that. So how can I rethink my thought process on it? So certainly from a technical point of view, we used to do, it was a Kickstarter project, and anyone who knows me well enough knows I love my Kickstarters. And it was called Constraints, and it was like a set of cards, and you'd play them out, and it would be, right, you've got to do this task, and you're not allowed to use an IDE. You have to use a text editor. So like everyone goes, oh yeah, I can't remember how to do HTML without it pre-telling me. Or it will be, you have to do it on the big screen. So you have to do it in front of everyone on a big screen, which is actually good fun. But it's that, you're not allowed to use conditional statements. So you've got no ifs, no loops, no nothing. And it's like, you've still got to do it. You've still got to do Roman numerals without that. You've got to do a kata with it. And I have pushback sometimes around managers going, but why would I want them to do it? Well, why wouldn't you want them to do it? They're doing it in a safe environment, but it gets them thinking differently. And by thinking differently, they'll come up with other solutions. So even for me, it's like getting people to learn, you might be a Java house, get them to learn Ruby, because there'll be something in Ruby that will actually get them to think differently, or get them to look at Scala, and because that's the cool kid on the block, as some of us were talking about. But having those challenges there, just keep people invigorated around it. So that's really important as well. So this wasn't originally meant to be a lightning talk, which I would have done a lot shorter, so I've now sort of extended it out a little bit. So the Agile Fluency Team Diagnostic is 21 questions that you rate from 1 to 5 of never, rarely, sometimes, often, and always. And you do that as a wider team, and it's the first thing you do, and then that comes out with a way around your ratings for it. So focus on value, deliver, and it just gives you this sort of pop out that says, well, yeah, we're probably mostly doing it, or most people feel we're doing it, and there's some other bits that we're doing with it. So you can really see where you are with it, but where do you want to get with it? And as I say, most people want to get back here to level 2. So to wrap it up, they're the 2 links for it. This is a great article that was written 4 years ago, 5 years ago now, and the Agile Fluency thing. So their site's very basic, I have to say that. So when it says contact us, it actually does open up an email and you send it that. They haven't invested in a whole system for it because it's just enough to get them going. And it is really interesting when you start getting into it because it's how the flow works and it opens conversations and gets teams to move forward. Yeah, so that's me. So, any questions, thoughts?